Sri Lanka. Kumaratunga contested for a second term in 1999. 1978 Constitution introduced the executive presidency, with the first presidential election of the country held in 1982. At the time, J.R. Jayawardena, contesting from the United National Party, acquired a percentage of 52.91% of votes, while his opponent Hector Kobakadu, representing the SLFP, only managed 39.7%. During the country's second presidential election held in 1988, the then Prime Minister Ranasinghe Premadasa contested from the UNP, while Sirimavu Bandaranaike contested from the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. R. Premadasa was elected president with 50.43% of the votes, while Sirimavu Bandaranaike only obtained 44.95%. The poll to elect the third executive president of the country took place in 1994. Presidential contender of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party on that occasion was Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, who won the election by a percentage of 62.28%, while UNP candidate Srimati Sananka only managed 35.91%. The 62.28% of the votes obtained by former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga is by far the highest percentage recorded by any president in the history of Sri Lanka. Kumaratunga contested for a second term in 1999, where she obtained 51.12% of the votes, defeating Ranil Wickramasinghe, who managed only 42.71% of the votes. In 2005, Mahinda Rajapaksa entered the presidential race, representing the United People's Freedom Alliance, with his opponent being UNP's Ranil Wickramasinghe. Rajapaksa edged out Wickramasinghe with 50.29% of the votes, with his rival managing 48.43%. Rajapaksa sought a second term in 2010 opposite former commander of the army, Field Marshal Surath Fonseca. Mahinda Rajapaksa obtained 57.88%, overpowering his former army commander, who only mastered 40.15%. Incumbent President Maithripala Sirisena's bid to become the sixth executive president of Sri Lanka in 2015 saw him contesting from the New Democratic Front. His opponent was Mahinda Rajapaksa. Sirisena obtained 51.28% of the votes and does not seek a second term.
Right. Now you have watched a video about something. So, I would like to ask a question from you all. What can you understand by watching this video? I know that some may think like this. It's just a video about politics or something. But some may think that it's a video that shows some important facts about the topic that I'm going to share with you today. Yes, definitely I will agree with your second idea. So, today the topic that I'm going to share with you is the conservative politics culture helps to develop Sri Lanka. When I say that word politics, I know that many people hate that word, as well as some may think that we don't need politics to develop our country. But according to my point of view, I think that for each and every country, there should be a clear politics culture to develop that country very well. So, my audience, among those haters, I'm a really big fan of politics, especially Sri Lankan politics. There's a reason for it. When I was in grade 5, it means in 2019, one day I watched a video about Sri Lankan Parliament. In that video, there was a minister who was speaking very loudly with a self-pride. After watching that video, I also thought that one day I can speak like this. One day I can have such a great personality like this. One day I can develop my country if I can be in that parliament. So that was the turning point where I started to love that subject called politics. So, my audience, do you all want to know that who was the minister? He was Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa. In that time period, he was my favorite politician. So from this picture, I think that you can understand how I love that person, but now he is not my favorite politician. So before going to talk about more details and more information about politics, is there anyone who can give a simple definition for politics? I think there's no one, but there are many complex definitions as well as complex quotes about politics. For an example, Mr. Otto von Bismarck once told that politics is the art of possibility, as well as the former USA President Mr. Abraham Lincoln told that the debate between parties having power is called as politics. But in my point of view, I think that politics is an activity that associates with the governance of a country or area. So each and every country has its own politics culture. Sri Lanka also has its own politics culture. So when we are doing politics, we can divide this subject into major sections. Therefore, again, I would like to ask a question. Is there anyone who can divide this subject into major sections? I think there's no one. Okay, I will divide. When we are doing politics, the main thing that we should gain is power. So, power is one of a major section of this politics. Not only power, but also we should have democracy, we should have parties, we should have elections, such as presidential elections, general elections, etc. So, from all these sections, I would like to deeply share about Sri Lankan presidential elections history. While discussing those elections, I would like to compare how those politicians developed our country during their each time period. So, at last, you will get a clear idea about what has happened to our country now. What has happened to our country's economy now. Okay. After the Constitution of 1978 Second Republic, Mr. J.R. Jayawardena was selected as the first executive president in our country in 1982. During his time period, he introduced a new economic concept called open economic concept. After introducing that concept, many foreign goods and merchandise were imported to our country. So, the current economic system was fully changed, as well as in his time era, struggles like Black July was begun in our country. So, however, to develop our country economically, socially, religiously and politically, only he obtained $1.2 million as foreign loan. So, after the time period of Mr. J.R. Jayawardena, Mr. Ranasinghe Premadasa was appointed as the second executive president in 1988. During his time period, our parents and grandparents know that struggle of JVP as well as the Tamil Eelam terrorist war were ongoing. So, to gain more weapons for Sri Lankan armies as well as to develop our country, he obtained $4.5 million as foreign loan. So, but unfortunately, in his time period, various individuals received excessive bribes and commissions from our country's economy. So, our country's economy was gradually deteriorating. After the time period of Mr. Ranasinghe Premadasa, Mrs. Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumartunga, who was the first female president in the world, was appointed as the third and fourth executive president in our country because she ruled our country from 1994 to 2005. In her time period, the Tamil Eelam terrorist war was continued fiercely. But in her time period, her government obtained $7.5 billion as foreign loan, but she was only able to repay $1.5 billion for those foreign countries. In her time period also, we are lucky to say that some politicians took huge money from our country's projects. For an example, during her time period, her government introduced a new project called Uturu Kareta Navodaya. From that project, a famous politician in that time period took 1 million rupees as a commission. So now what can you understand? Okay, I will ask that question from you later. After the time period of Mrs. Chandrika Bandaranaike, Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, who was my favorite politician in that time, but now he is not, was appointed as the 5th and 6th executive president in our country, because he ruled our country from 2005 to 2015. During his time era, he was able to finish that Tamil Eelam terrorist war in 2009. After finishing that war, he and his government were started to develop our country. He built new schools, new harbor, new airport. Not only those things, but also his government introduced a new highway road system in our country. At last, he was able to develop our country economic growth rate from minus 3.9 to plus 4.7. But again, we are lucky to say that in his time period also, some politicians took huge money from these projects. For an example, Mr. 10% is also one such person. After the time period of Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, Mr. Maithripala Sirisena, can you all remember now? He was appointed as the 7th executive president in our country in 2015. During his time period, a series of financial irregularities as well as bribery were taken place in our country. The best example for that is the bond scam of Sri Lankan Central Bank. The court and other most important reports state that this has caused a loss of 10 billion rupees for Sri Lankan government. As well as the court has revealed some famous politicians in that time period were involved in this case. Okay. After the time period of Mr. Maithripala Sirisena, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who is the brother of Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, was selected as the 8th executive president in our country in 2019. During his time period, can you all remember that the COVID-19 virus was spreading throughout the country, but somehow his government was able to prevent it. But suddenly his government increased the taxes. His government increased the prices of food items. Not only food items, but also other items such as fuel, etc. So from all these things, the people in our country were severely affected. But politicians, they lived in a comfortable life. So this was seen by the people in our country. So they started to protest against for this. At last, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa was resigned in 2022 from his presidency. Right. Now I will ask that question. What can you understand? Is there anyone? No. Okay. I can guarantee that now you have a clear idea about what has happened to our country, especially what has happened to our country's economy. So this conservative politics culture as well as some politicians are one of the main reasons for our country's economic inflation. So as Sri Lankans, we should change this typical pattern. For that, we can do many things. For an example, when we are selecting members or else when we are selecting representatives for parliament, we should be tactful, we should be intelligent, as well as we should have a prior study on them before we select them to parliament, instead of sending the same politician to parliament in every year, like some of past Sri Lankans have done this. In the past, some of Sri Lankans thought that, for an example, I have voted for this party, political party, so I should continue voting for this party. So, not only those things, they have done many silly things. In Sinhala, there's a famous phrase for that. Mama කැපුවත් නිල්, මම කැපුවත් කොළ, මම කැපුවත් රතු. Likewise, they think, but those concepts are not useful in this present society. According to present society, we should be smart to choose the correct representative for parliament, as well as we should create a new politics culture that brings the prosperity to our country, as well as we should create a new politics system that brings prosperity to the citizen in our country. At last, the message that I want to give you is, let's all build a new Sri Lanka with economically, politically, socially and religiously developed.